and welcome back here on FestiVITA for our series of traveling abroad, year abroad, and discovering what students have to tell us about their year abroad experience. Today we have Anna with us. Hello, Anna. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can. Hi, Matt.
Beautiful, beautiful. So today you're here to tell us about your experience of two countries. You've been
hmm
on your year abroad in Spain, and then you're also here to tell us about your work experience or kind of work weeks that you did in China, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
So where about did you go in Spain, and where about did you go in China?
I went to a town called Ubeda in Spain, which is in the province, in the region Jaén in Andalusia, and a lovely, quite rural town. Lots of olive oil in that region. Lots of mountains, lovely hikes, that kind of thing. You get the gist. Um, so I was there, and then in the summer the next year, I went to China. I was in a town called Yangshuo, which is in a region called Guangxi, so sort of just very southern China. Again, quite rural there. So yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. So my first question that I wanted to ask you is, what motivated you to choose these specific countries? Did you have any specific choices that the university gave you, or was it, your personal choice? You really wanted to go to China and to Spain. What brought you,
Mhm.
to go there?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think obviously, other than it being my degree, and obviously that being helpful to get out in the country and actually have that real life experience, I think for me, um, in both Spain and China, I worked. I did English teaching, which was really useful for me as I'd had very little experience working, as a student, and I just wanted to escape studying for a while. Like with COVID and everything, I just wanted a bit of a change. So that's pretty much why I decided to do that, I guess. And British Council was quite a straightforward way of doing that for Spain. So yeah.
Well, talk about the British Council. We know how difficult it can be sometimes, for students to to
Yeah.
get through the British
Yeah.
Council and going abroad for their year abroad. And how
Yeah.
was the preparation with the British Council? Was it long, painful,
Oh,
or did you say it was
yeah.
pretty straightforward?
Look, I don't want to sort of bash British Council too much because obviously
Don't worry, I think we
I
have a
had a.
lot of people who've done it already.
Are we?
I don't think you'll be the first one.
Look, I'm very grateful for the opportunity. So I actually overall had a really positive experience. However, I will say that in the very beginning with British Council, obviously they give priority to university students in the application process, and I was sort of with the understanding that I was sort of inevitably going to get accepted, or that the chance, if I put together a proper application, that I would get accepted was quite high. Um, and then I get an email from British Council saying that like I didn't make the cut. And so I was really quite shocked by that. So then I'm scrambling around to try and find jobs in Spain, doing interviews in Spanish. I actually got a job offer in the end. But then British Council came back and told me that was an administrative error
How
and that I actually
lovely.
did get the job.
How lovely. We love bureaucracy, don't we?
We love that.
Wow.
um, yeah, yeah. So once I found out that I did actually have the job, everything was pretty good from there. I didn't know that the process of choosing my location would be as crazy as it was, because as maybe other people have told you, I know it depends on the region, but for me in Andalusia, we had hundreds of different schools to choose from, and the schools that we could choose from were going, being taken away as people were selecting them off on the list, like as time went on. So I had to have a very like rigid, like methodological, huh? Logical process of going through it and really like looking into each location, looking into each school, seeing how many language assistants were in the area. And so I ended up, I think, with quite a good deal being where I was. but obviously it's not what I necessarily thought I would be doing. Like this town over there, no one had ever heard of it that I'd spoken to. I thought I was maybe going to end up in Seville or Granada or Madrid, so it was a shock for sure.
Wow, wow. Well, I can imagine. I can imagine the process must have been really long. And
Yeah.
you talked about how you had 100, like, lot of schools
Mm,
open to you where you could go because you were
yeah.
teaching English, right?
Yes. Yes, exactly. Yeah.
How did you find
Yeah.
that process of, like, teaching English? Was it more kids or more like high school? Like, who was it for?
I did pretty much everything under the sun.
Wow.
And I enjoyed that part of the experience. I did, classes, age range, let's say between um, sort of 12 years old um, up to IB students. And then I also did adult classes as well, because it was also a vocational training center in my case, as well as a high school. So for that reason, yeah, I pretty much did everything.
Wow, wow. And what about in China? So you said, so you went to your for your abroad in Spain, so teaching
Hmm.
English in Andalusia,
Yes.
and then you
Yes.
went to China for 2 weeks. What did you
Hmm.
do in China? Was it a work experience, right?
Yeah. I had a really great company, actually. Well, they're more of a program called Go to Co, and with them, basically, I could um, doing a bit of English teaching slash almost volunteering and getting the accommodation for free, food for free, flights were paid for, and in return, I had two classes and I had four relatively short lessons that I would teach each day, mixed ability, mixed age range, and yeah, teaching English. So,
That sounds
but I
like a.
was the lead teacher for that, so that was interesting.
Oh, really? How was it? That's
Yeah.
the thing. That was my next question, actually. How was the cultural kind of change when you arrived to China?
Mm.
Because we know obviously how Spain is. In Europe, there's some
Yeah.
similarities, some differences, but I imagine arriving in China must have been very different.
Oh yeah, especially having going, yeah, I had to get used to the kids swearing in class in Spain. Not that they were bad kids at all, but just different cultures and different levels of formality and things like that. Whereas obviously, uh, I mean, kids are kids at the end of the day, so of course they're not going to be super formal all the time, but definitely there's a level of respect that you have to show to teachers. I think culturally it's important in China. I think that comes from, if I'm right, a sort of Confucian tradition in a way. So that was different and very nice to be that respected. Yeah.
I can imagine. I can imagine.
Yeah.
What about the cultural, like, aspect of the country itself? Because obviously, you were teaching in China, but what
Mm,
in your activities in general, when you're walking the street or seeing other stuff,
yeah.
like, was there anything in specific that you found quite, oh wow, that's impressive, or something you didn't expect?
Mm. There were so many things I didn't expect. I cannot even begin with that, but
Go for it. Go
I
for it.
think
You're
I'll
more
try.
than welcome to talk about whatever you want.
I would say one very positive thing I think is that when I talk to people about my experience in going to China, a lot of people think, oh, how did they respond to you as a foreigner? Maybe perceptions of China or things like that aren't always positive, or there's sort of a mixed picture there. And so people do wonder, oh, like, did people, sort of respond well to you, basically? And I would say that the vast majority of the time, people were incredibly friendly to me. And, I felt generally very safe. Um, and yeah, just very welcomed. People were really nice. People really, I think, were quite, appreciative of the fact that I really, clearly took an interest in Chinese language and Chinese culture. So yeah, that was great.
Well, I can imagine. I imagine, when you arrive in a country and the locals see that you get interest in their home home country,
Mm.
home culture. It clearly must, help in the kind of, relationship you'll have with them after. Well, talk about, the
Mm.
relationship that, the happiness and, that you can possibly, bring
Mm.
to Chinese people. How did you find communicating with them? Was it
Mm.
complicated? Because how?
No.
Because actually, I forgot to ask. How was your level of Chinese before you arrived to China? Was it? Can you
Uh,
manage? Did you manage to have a kind of a, conversation with them, or did you have to use a lot of English?
um, I wouldn't say I used a lot of English because obviously, it's very hard for English speakers to learn Chinese, and the same goes for Chinese speakers learning English. And of course, I was also not in, Beijing, Shanghai. I wasn't in these kind of metropolis-like cities. My town was a lovely town, and plenty of people and things to do, but it wasn't as if there were lots of people to speak English to me. So it was very much like, even with my limited language competency, I had to make do, and people were very um, sympathetic in terms of trying to understand with my limited Chinese, like what I meant, basically. Yeah.
Okay, okay, I see.
Yeah. Yeah.
And another question that I'm wondering, whenever we go abroad, and especially
Mm.
on our own, one of the first things we want to do is make friends and meet people.
Yeah. Yeah.
How did you manage to do that, especially in China? It's true, you were not
Mm.
there for long, but did you
No.
manage to find people quite easily, or was it a bit challenging at the
Yeah.
beginning?
Yeah, actually, it wasn't that challenging, I would say, because um I was at a very good sort of language academy. And I mean, for one, I was on a program, so there were other like English teachers who or volunteers who were obviously who I could make friends with more easily, but also people who were learning, like adults who were learning English there. We would do language exchanges and things like that. So, um, there are definitely young Chinese people around who wanted to make friends and, practice the language along the way. So, yeah,
Very
that was
nice,
good.
very nice. And what about
Yeah.
in Spain? Because we know how much, especially in Madrid, from what we heard,
Yes.
is very kind of Erasmus vibe. There's a lot of, international students coming from
Mm,
all over the world in Madrid, and, they managed to
right.
meet up quite a lot thanks to the Erasmus program. But what about in
Yeah.
Andalusia? Is it kind of the same vibe, or is it more complicated, I would say? Or did you manage to meet a lot of locals?
I think, like, obviously, having worked at a school, I would say that I had very friendly, like good relationships with the teachers at my school. And just very really smart people, often with a really good level of English as well, which, just made it even easier. And everyone's pretty friendly. And I also had a couple of other language teachers in the area, which was one of the things that I sort of checked when I was deciding where to move for British Council. So it was relatively easy, but there's certainly no like big Erasmus presence in Ubeda. I've seen that there are, like, international exchanges for sure, but um, none that I really had the chance to be a part of. No. So it was very much just like, I mean, people notice you. It's a small town, so anyone who's around, I guess, will just be friends.
Well, nice. Well, it creates a
Yeah.
nice community then all around in the city.
Yeah.
You were talking about how especially in China there's kind of
Mm.
a cultural difference between the respect of the kids that have towards the teacher compared
Yeah.
to maybe the European countries, and
Yes.
so that's why I was wondering, do you think there are any like local customs or traditions
Mm.
that
Mm.
students should be aware, when they go to China, and kind of, maybe respect even
Mm.
more than in Europe?
Yeah, that's yeah, I think so. Yeah, for sure. I would say, like, maybe obviously I came coming from the perspective of being like a young teacher and not, being English, like I wouldn't be offended if the kids had been more casual with me, but I do think had I been um, studying at a university in China, I would have paid special attention to be a little bit more respectful. Maybe it's not quite so common to um, sort of challenge the teacher quite so much, a little bit more deferential treatment, I think generally is preferred. So I think in order to not come across as arrogant, I expect you should probably try to be just a little bit more respectful, try and be a little bit quiet, and then maybe, depending on your teacher or the school that you're at, you can change your tone depending on how they react to you and everything like that. But yeah.
Okay, nice, nice. Before we unfortunately come to an end, I wanted to ask you: do you think, like, what are the, let's say, like, the big advice, like the number one advice that you would recommend to anyone going, first of all, on their year abroad to Andalusia, or for anyone going on their year abroad also to China? Okay, it can be anywhere in China, whether Beijing, Shanghai, or even the city that you were in. I don't want to pronounce it because I'm worried I might do a mispronunciation.
Oh no, I still pronounce it wrong. So
Chinese is such a beautiful
say,
language.
oh, I'm in Yangshuo, and then no, the Chinese person that I'm talking to will say, no, it's Yangshuo.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's such a beautiful language, such a beautiful culture. But for us Europeans, whenever we pronounce it, we think it's the same thing. But for them, they hear, just a slightly different, and it makes it means completely something else.
Yeah, they're so sweet though, because I know I sound like a complete nails on a blackboard to them. I must do, and they're really very tolerant. But yeah, in terms of advice, I would just say you get out what you put in at the end of the day. And I'm sorry, I'm assuming you also went on a year abroad, right?
No, unfortunately, I didn't.
Unfortunately,
I would have wanted. I was supposed
yeah.
to go to Madrid, i.e.,
Okay.
but
Circumstance. Yeah.
unfortunately, I couldn't. I actually decided not to in the end because,
Fair enough.
yeah, and which I think was a bit of a silly decision from me, because from what I can hear, honestly, from all of you, who went on your year abroad, it seems like a wonderful experience, and I kind of regret it, but in the same time, I'm like, I'm still young, and I can do it for sure in another way.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, exactly. I don't know if you're graduating soon. If you are, who's to say you can't do that after your studies, right?
Oh,
But
definitely.
anyway, I think just with this, and I think certainly, it's kind of similar to how uni is. It's like, even though I was working, it's you get out what you put in to a large extent. And with Spain, I would go on, I would get my blah blah car, obviously check the reviews first, so hopefully they weren't going to be an axe murderer, but pretty much just go. This is such bad advice. I'm saying to get in a stranger's car and go traveling. But
just go on the vibe.
just,
Obviously,
just go on the vibe.
be careful. Be careful of what you do,
yes,
but I think you're right.
not too careful.
It is an advice that a lot of people give every time. Is just enjoy as much as possible, because it's I think, I mean, from what I can hear, it's a life experience that potentially we'll never ever do in our life again, and we have to get the most of it. So no, I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
And
yeah, exactly.
last question I just realized now. It's not really related to the Euro itself. It's more the Chinese culture. As a European, how do you find it to learn the Chinese language? Because we know, it's full of characters. They don't have the same alphabet. And is it kind of because I've done Chinese for 4 or 5 years.
My gosh,
I really loved it, and I thought it was kind of a game vibe. I don't know if you feel.
It does feel like that. It does.
Because for people who don't know, basically the character of the mouth when for speak is literally a square, which then represents the mouth, and same goes for the tree. If you look at the character of the tree, it will be the shape of a tree. So it is a difficult language, I agree.
Yeah.
But if you take it as a game, I would recommend to everyone, if you want to learn a language, learn Chinese, because you've got so much to discover. I don't know if you think the same, but yeah, that's how I thought.
Yes. Oh my goodness, yes. I just, I really do. I really do love it. I'm a bit of a nerd when it comes to Chinese. I mean, I'm still really bad at it, don't get me wrong, but as in, I just think the language is really cool. And I thought that that's really the reason I wanted to start it from scratch, is because it's not like anything you've likely done in school. You might have been very lucky to do it in school. I didn't get to do it in school, at least like studying it properly. And it's, yeah, having in one character, like, a pictograph. So yeah, like you say, with the tree, and you can maybe see the resemblance between the meaning and the image. And then also, you know, you're not just learning a language, you're learning a big part of such a huge history, which I think is fascinating. Like, you may have heard this, like the character for jia, like home, like to
Oh,
be
yes.
basically a pig under a roof, right?
Yes, indeed, indeed.
Because obviously in ancient China, people used to keep pigs, like, in their homes, I think. And so, or like the character for a woman, um, or no, the character for peace being a woman under a roof. I mean, a little bit, sexist, but hey, it's history, and I think it's really interesting. So, yeah, I think that was just fascinating for me, for sure. So it is more difficult, but it's also, for me, it's been so much more stimulating than any other kind of language experience I've had. So it's been worth it 100%.
Nice, nice. Well, talk about history. You were
Mm,
saying that, it was fascinating, obviously, for you to discover a whole, you know, huge history background in a way that,
yeah.
China has, because it's true that in Europe, I mean, at least from what I saw, we don't seem to learn a lot of the Asian culture as much as, we do the Western
Mm,
and the European one. Did you
hmm.
manage to visit a lot of stuff in China, whether, it was in the town where you were, or even if you visited, maybe, I don't know, if you went to Beijing or Shanghai?
Um, I didn't make it that far. I would say, what did I see? I mostly kind of went around the province that I was in, because of course China is such a big place. But I had, when I was much younger, actually, I did go to Beijing once, and that was a really magical experience. I went to a part of the Great Wall, and yeah, that was crazy, because you're like, I'm climbing on this, huge monument. I mean, the thousands of people that would have worked on that, and the history that that holds, and it was just crazy. So yeah, definitely the history is a big part, and all the recent history as well, and just seeing it from a real life perspective, and how that has shaped modern China into what it is today, rather than just a textbook, or what you hear online, or anything like that. So yeah, definitely really interesting.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, it was a pleasure to discover all about, your experience in China and in Spain, Andalusia. And I thank you so much for coming today on the Year Abroad series here at FestiVITA for the 24-hour show. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. And I shall all see you all very soon.
Thank you so much, Matt. Okay, bye.